It's a great joy to be again with you on this launch day of the book, the fourth day actually, and this will be our last meeting for the time being, but we look forward to being together more on different occasions. I want to start, as we are just a little bit, the starting was a little delayed, with doing some quotes, things that you can think about, and these are part of the book. So the way the book is presented is that it has the writing within it, but it has on the sides these quotes here that help you kind of think of the general idea that is in the book or on those pages of the book. So wherever you look, you will have these quotes, and then you will have, of course, the titles of the courses, and then again quotes everywhere. And you will have also metaphors and pictures, illustrations that give an idea from an illustration level of what we are actually looking at, what we are doing, so that we can understand it as an idea that can be seen in the mind. So you can imagine things like when we say the ocean. Of course, consciousness is not an ocean made out of water, but the ocean idea helps us to understand the fact that it has dimensions, that it has waves, that it has depths, it has quiet level, silent level, and also we are saying that the ocean is infinite and unbounded. So I'd like to start today with thinking with you about some quotes that we have from the book. And you see how, for example, the main ideas are there. And so that's like a summary of a page or a summary of a few pages. For example, you think of patterns of consciousness. There are patterns of consciousness. And they are these patterns that construct our mind, our nervous system, and our universe. So usually we think as things constructed by material values, but in fact it is consciousness in its patterns that appears as different aspects. And this is how the consciousness paradigm, this is yet another quote, where the consciousness paradigm solves the hard problem of consciousness. Hard problem of consciousness means how did consciousness appear from material life? So we are reinverting the ideas, rather than saying that consciousness comes from material, physical values. We are just inverting or reversing the problem and recognizing that the brain does not give rise to consciousness. It doesn't give rise to consciousness at all. It's actually the other way around. It's consciousness that appears as the different aspects of matter and physicality. Another quote would be, consciousness in its essential nature is beyond the brain, beyond individuality. It is unbounded, pure being, the self of everyone and everything. So consciousness is primary and doesn't depend on a nervous system to exist. It's through the nervous system that we can see consciousness from a particular perspective. So that's why another quote that is there in one of those little quadrants, it says, I am suggesting that we reverse the enigmatic problem about how matter creates consciousness and state that it is consciousness that creates matter. More precisely, consciousness appears as matter. Another one is, the belief that only the physical is real has colored and clouded our understanding and diminished our appreciation of life, undermining much that we cherish. So these are some kind of ideas, and they are like every few pages there are many of them. So the book will describe in detail the idea, and then the conclusion, the essence of those ideas will be found in a little box that you will see. So now let's take a few questions. And there is one from Akibold Chabalala that has been asked on Facebook. how do you tell when you are enlightened? And so in the book it's well described the different stages of consciousness, the different levels of consciousness. And enlightenment is when you are no more limited by the boundaries of perception. Now when you look at the flower overtakes your consciousness. When you are enlightened, you never lose the sense of the self as being the ocean of consciousness. So you are always established in samadhi, which is a state of evenness of the mind. You are fully settled within yourself, fully enlightened, because you know reality, you know who you are the infinite ocean of consciousness, and that is how you are confident that you are enlightened. And more enlightenment, is when this reality never leaves you. So when you transcend, you go to that field and the ocean. In that moment, you are having a glimpse of enlightenment, and this adds up until it becomes stable with you all the time. So no matter what you are doing on the outside, you are always established within the self. You are always unbounded and never lose the sense of being the ocean of consciousness, even when you are looking at objects of consciousness. There is another level of consciousness which is even higher, that we call glorified state of cosmic consciousness, or when you can perceive everything in perfect order and harmony. And the highest state of consciousness is when you see everything as yourself. Even though you see the apple as an apple, the flower as a flower, the person as a person, the mountain as a mountain, but you know within, and your direct experience is that this is also the ocean, and therefore since you are the ocean and this is the ocean, this is all yourself. And that's why we say this is a state of the highest level of unity consciousness, which is the highest stage of enlightenment. But enlightenment starts by liberating yourself from the boundaries of perception, and that is something that grows gradually. It doesn't have to happen just like that. You can have experience of enlightenment. You can be more and more self-referral, less and less object referral, which means situations and circumstances are shaking you out. Now you are much more stable within yourself, and even if things happen, they don't shake you. You are able to deal with them. That is gradually growing until you are infinitely stable within yourself. Ruzika Shas on Facebook now is also asking, how does one know that consciousness exists when humanity ceases to exist, for example, after a nuclear holocaust, let's say? That is really based on the understanding of the totality of what consciousness is. To answer this question, we really have to go through the entire book in a sense, or at least the essence of what is in the book, and to understand that consciousness is independent of its manifest value. So its manifest value is who we are, what we live, and like that. And it has different qualities. There is human consciousness, there is animal consciousness, there is plant consciousness, there is even mineral consciousness. These are different grades and ranges and levels of consciousness. They are actually not a creation of new aspects of consciousness. They are just different partial experience of the ocean of consciousness. It's like you say, I now put all my attention on the small wave. All my consciousness is aware of the small wave. That is one level of awareness which takes into consideration only one aspect of the wave. Now, if the wave goes and the ocean settles, the consciousness doesn't disappear because the ocean is always there. So the ocean is always there, but we can experience it from different perspectives. Now, this perspective can seem to go away, but the ocean always remains. And in fact, when you look deeper, these perspectives actually never go away. They are always there. That is why it's a field of immortality. But they become there in a virtual way, not on a physical level, not on what you call physical level or observed levels on the surface. And this takes us to PKW is saying, please explain the initial impetus for manifestation. So in a sense, why is consciousness manifesting? And the book explains somehow, it gives the impression that consciousness is to learn and to know and reveal, and in a sense is what it is like to be ignorant. So in a sense, it's also correct. So consciousness in its ocean reality is unbounded, is infinite, it's enlightened, of course, it knows everything. And this, it never loses. It never loses that quality. It's not that when manifestation happens, the ocean disappears. It's only what we see that appears to be there, but the ocean is always there, underlying all the waves. And so consciousness remains always infinite, unbounded, untouched by what happens on the surface. However, what consciousness is, it is to be conscious. That is its nature. And to be conscious in every possible way. So now it's conscious in an infinite way, and it wants to know from a limited way. So when you put all the limited perspectives together with the unbounded perspective, then you have really total knowledge. So you want to say that it wants to know what it is like to be ignorant, and in a sense, you can say that it is true, but from its perspective, it just means what it is like to be seeing things from a limited perspective. And then these limited perspectives, they evolve. And they evolve, you know, like we humans evolve from a lower consciousness to a higher consciousness to a higher consciousness. And that is what gives the joy of the actual manifestation, because now manifestation shows a dynamic of growth, of evolution. And this for us happens within space and time. And that's why it takes time to do this, time to do that, and we have to do things within the limitations of space and time. But in reality, the unbounded consciousness actually sees everything at the same time. This is hard to imagine for us humans, but this is the quality of the unbounded consciousness, able to perceive and experience everything simultaneously. All is here and all is now. Eileen wants to just us to describe a little bit more about what is transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation is a technique to dive from the surface of the ocean to the depths of the ocean. Transcending, to transcend, means to go beyond. And what transcendental meditation is, what allows us to go beyond the surface of the ocean. How do we do it? You have to learn from a teacher, but basically what you do is you sit quietly, you close the eyes, and then you learn a technique which involves a sound, we call it a mantra, that has no meaning, but it's life-supporting. It has positive vibration in it, if you like, that the teacher chooses for you. And you learn how to use that mantra, and guided by the nature of the mind to want to go for more and more, when you direct yourself inside with the mantra as a vehicle on which kind of the mind sits, then the mind settles down naturally, guided by its own nature, towards the depths of the ocean. So that's basically what transcendental meditation is. But it's a technique, so it requires to learn it properly. That's why we have a teacher that can teach you. And also that's why we have an app that follows up with you and gives you more knowledge. Ania wants to know how many 10,000 groups are being created. We actually hope for 2 or 3 at least. And so we look forward to having them and seeing that hopefully by the end of this year, when they are established, that the world will be much better, more balanced, and all these wars and complications hopefully should stop. So we expect and we hope that those who are doing these groups, and we really admire them and adore their activity. They are our teachers of Transcendental meditation, teaching in different circumstances in different places in India, and we hope that these will become solid and get established, and we will see a better world very, very quickly. Coral Morales, the great Coral, is asking, how does understanding consciousness help individuals enhance their well-being, creativity, or even interpersonal relationship? See, consciousness, you can say, is like the light that dispels the darkness. If you are living in a dark room, then you don't see how to have relation to anyone else who's in the dark room. Because then if you move around and you do something, you can hit each other, and then you can get upset with each other simply because you don't see properly, you don't see completely. If you bring the light, then you are seeing your past, you're seeing what is around you, and therefore you are able to make good decisions, and you are able to have better relations, and you are able to see present and future and have learned from the past, because broadening consciousness broadens awareness, and you see more variables, you see more possibilities that you do not see when you are under stress and strain, because when you are under stress and strain, your vision narrows and you are only dealing with a stressful situation. And when you settle down, your mind relaxes, your body relaxes, and rests deeply, then all the stresses and strains get removed. That's how well-being is established. You are not now being bothered by things that are in your physiology or on your mind that don't let you feel good or be happy. So that's how well-being is there. And then when you broaden your awareness, you go to the depths of the ocean, and from the depths of the ocean, all the intelligence and creativity that builds the entire universe is coming from that ocean of consciousness. So you're going to the source of all creativity and intelligence, the reservoir of creativity and intelligence which is within you, and that's how you are having access to much more creativity, much more intelligence, and you can deal with your relationships in a much better way. Judith White has many questions, and they are very profound. Let's see how many we can answer. And this question says, you say consciousness can look at everything from infinite points of view. Of necessity, doesn't artificial intelligence have to use less than infinite points of view, which seems a built-in limitation? Yeah, this is very good. This is very absolutely right, that human consciousness can go to that infinite point of view, and that the machines, unless they are like humans, of course, they will always have some limited point of view. Very good point. On YouTube, we even have a question from Avril. It feels like this is the frame through which consciousness is perceived. Do we humans not affect this field, and is this field not affected by us? So what is this field? What is its original composition? This field consists of the full spectrum of emotions, good, bad, and others. How is it possible to eradicate evil if it is part of this original field? See, this field has all possibilities within it, but not all possibilities manifest or have to manifest. If you take something that is static in a certain situation, it cannot be by itself evil or good or bad. Evil, good, and bad are depending on how things evolve. Are they evolving in the right direction, or they are going in the wrong direction? But a static something, an object, let's say a house, is a static situation. A human being, whatever it is a human being in a static situation. But evil and good and bad and all this happens in a dynamic situation. So like the house, you destroy the house. When you compare before and after, you can say it's bad to have destroyed the house. If you hurt a human being, the human being is healthy, and now it becomes unhealthy, then it has been transformed into something evil. The process is an evil process. But the static situation is whatever it is. So a person who is in an unhealthy state, if they become better, then that's a good situation. If they become worse, then that's not the best situation. So even though all possibilities are present in the field of the absolute as static situations, what happens is in manifestation, some of them will appear, and they will appear in certain sequences, and these sequences define good and bad and good or better by comparison one with the other. So that is how it is. And for example, imagine a unicorn. You imagine a unicorn, but there are no unicorns in our life. So that is the same way. Possibilities are there, infinite possibilities are there, as static, in a sense, possibilities, but in the manifest level, they don't have all to manifest. So it depends on our choices, on our behavior, how and what we manifest in the physical reality, and that is how, when we go from one stage to other, make a choice and change. Are we changing in the right direction? Then we say it's good. Are we not changing in the right direction? Then it is not as good. Is consciousness perceived by the senses, or is it detected by the senses? Rima is asking that, Rima Abu Hassan. It is experienced through the senses. Some aspect of consciousness are experienced through the senses. So perceived is also a right word. Detected is also the right word. So it's kind of, you have different entities that are all small levels of consciousness or big levels of consciousness examining or looking at each other in a sense. So when I look at you, you look at me. For you, you are the subject. For me, I am the subject, and you are the object of my perception. And the contrary also. I am the object of your perception, but you are the subject that is looking at me. As far as I'm concerned, I'm the subject. And like that, every entity is a subject, looking at other subjects and seeing them as being objects. So everyone and everything is a perceiver from their point of view, from their ability to perceive, but they perceive others as objects of their perception. Now, if you are enlightened, you can see that the other is also consciousness, or if you have a certain level of awareness even before being enlightened, you can say, well, yeah, this is a human being, and they are conscious, and so I appreciate that they are looking at me as a subject. And like this, everything, you know, you look at an animal, and if you see the animal also as a subject, because it has its own level of experience, its own level of consciousness, and it's looking at the whole world as being objects in its reality. And so the more you see subjecthood in objects and in things and beings, the more you are in the direction of greater enlightenment. There are questions, a few questions that are about the book and where it will come to different countries. Now it is really sent to English-speaking countries, but we are trying to get it to all the different countries of the world. See if you can order it from an English-speaking country near you. So if you are in Europe, maybe from the UK. If you are in India, India will have it, and it has it, so you can order it there. But if in the meantime you are not able to order it right away, you can always order it as an ebook, which is great. You can download it and have it immediately wherever you are. Now, for it to come in different languages, we are going to translate it, and it's going to happen, I hope, very quickly. And we hope to make it available in all languages of the world gradually. Of course, the major languages first. There is a question whether it is in Hindi. It is in Hindi, and it will be in different. It is in different also other languages, and it's not this book that is really yet in Hindi, but the previous book, which was called One Unbounded Ocean of Consciousness, is also in Hindi and other languages. But this book, in its present state, which really represents the main ideas of the other book, so it really replaces and completes the other book with illustrations, with better kind of organization, with an appendix, with different structure, is also going to be translated, and we hope it will be available also in all other languages. Now, there are some who have asked some questions again, a second time. So this is a question about when we leave, consciousness is not there and doesn't go with the soul. The question is by Anya. And that's really a question about what happens when we drop the body and we have consciousness is not there as if. What about the soul, for example? So we didn't enter into the discussion of the soul, but we entered into the discussion, and we discussed it last time, of the difference between awareness and consciousness. So awareness is the ability to be aware of something by putting your attention on it. And sometimes, you don't put your attention on anything, you fall asleep. Then the body is aware, it's aware of temperature, we know, because if temperature changes, it can wake up, or aware of sound on a subtle level. If the sound is loud, it wakes up the body. So that means the body has a sense of awareness, but much more limited than the awareness of waking state or the awareness of higher state of consciousness. Now, consciousness is not going when you sleep. What defines you, your consciousness, is not just what you are aware of. What defines you as your consciousness is all the things you are, and all the things you have learned, and all the things you have loved and been, and all of experience. All of these things define who you are in terms of your consciousness. So consciousness has all these layers and all these patterns in which you can experience one aspect or another aspect. If you are both a physician and a scientist and a pilot and a car driver and a musician and a painter or whatever, you can have all of these qualities. But when you are practicing your doctorship, or when you are piloting a plane, you are a pilot. Or you are driving a car, you are a driver. So your attention is there, and those aspects of your consciousness are coming to your awareness and are enlivened, but the other aspects didn't go, so they are still there. And so even when the body drops, that wholeness, now you can call it the soul if you like, but that wholeness, which is your sum of your consciousness, what you have learned and what you have been and all of that, remains and is ready to evolve and to learn more until it's liberated, it's freed from the boundaries, and then it is free, and it is merges with the absolute. And so that is the relationship. Coral also asking another question: could you please explain how different cultures and philosophies view consciousness? Not all cultures and philosophies, of course, discuss necessarily consciousness in terms of consciousness, but they discuss it often in other terms, which are spiritual terms, like we just have seen the soul. What is the soul? And we are saying the soul is a complex set of dynamics of consciousness that are attached to a certain person or individual in this case, and that constitutes the sum total of who they are. what they have learned, what they have done, their karmas, and all of that are kind of a package of consciousness. So different cultures talk about consciousness in different ways, but if you look deeply into the ways, you can find a common denominator whereby the logic presented in this book, and Consciousness is All There Is, actually unifies all the different cultures and religions and their most profound and deep beliefs into a very coherent, consistent level, where even things that appear to be on the surface contradictory are actually not really contradictory. It becomes just a question of interpretation, of how we look at things, you know, how, from which angle you look at the same reality. And that is what is beautiful in this consciousness paradigm. It unifies all cultures, all belief systems. You can find truth in them. Only you have to know that they are looking at this level of reality, or they're looking at that level of reality. And that means they are not wrong, but they are just putting their awareness, their consciousness, directed as through attention on one aspect versus the other, and sometimes depends on nature, on culture, on habits, on the history of that culture. So Judith White wants to know that because there is familiarity with so many topics, whether this comes from the practice of transcendental meditation. And yes, indeed, the more you are deep within, the more you analyze things from a clear perspective, the more you are able to perceive reality. But it also comes from learning, comparing, for example, in my case, with Maharishi's teaching, how he discussed consciousness from the Vedanta, from looking at different philosophies, from neuroscience, from modern science and physics and the unified field. So you put all of these things together, and if you go back into yourself and see them, then gradually all of this knowledge comes forth and is easy to explain and to talk about. So Judy also has another question here, is you say that all can be solved if we raise collective consciousness. Is it correct to say that sharing the knowledge from your book is one of the ways to raise collective consciousness? Yes, indeed, on the knowledge level, which means it allows people to look deeper into their reality, into the worldview, their paradigm, because all of us have a worldview. Some have a worldview that everything is material, even if they don't think about it philosophically or on the belief level. They have a worldview, which means you think the whole reality is to be seen from this particular perspective, from this tradition, from this way of thinking, from this what you have learned at school, from your belief systems, from you know, what you have been told about the relationship with each other, about the relationship with divine or with nature, or no divine or no nature. So intuitively inside of us, we build a worldview. And when the worldview is entrenched in physicality and materiality and all of this, then it influences how you see things, how you behave. And maybe if one tells you, come practice transcendental meditation, you say, why should I do something esoteric, something that doesn't exist, because I don't believe consciousness is anything special, I don't believe the mind has anything to do, it's all based on my body, and it's all based on what I own and my physicality, and all I can do is just, you know, find myself to protect myself, or just, you know, grab whatever I can grab depending on your level of understanding. And so when you give a knowledge, and the ancient teachings of yoga and the Bhagavad Gita and the Veda says that knowledge is a great purifier. So yes, indeed, by understanding things from a perspective that is more refined, more spiritual, then knowing that reality is more based on spirituality, really, which means non-materiality, non-physicality, then you are more likely to learn transcendental meditation and practice transcendence, and then collectively you can create the effect. So it's on the way to creating the collective effect, but the collective effect, to be really powerful, is to really transcend and practice the techniques, not just to read about it or understand it. But reading about it and understanding it allows us to open our awareness to new possibilities and to understand reality from its true nature. You know, if you deal with something and imagine it to be something else, you're never going to be able to deal with it in the proper way, because you think of it as something else. You know, you see somebody gives you a bunch of roses, and you say, oh, this is full of thorns. I see thorns everywhere. And the rose is all about thorns. If you're stuck with that idea, you cannot deal with the rose as a beautiful flower with fragrance, and the gesture as being a friendly gesture and a loving gesture of offering you a rose. Of course, it's an example, and it's an extreme kind of imagination. People don't usually look at the rose as being full of thorns. But, you know, it's just an example to tell us. You look at somebody else and you say they are from different culture, from different race, from different belief, from different everything. So definitely they are a threat to me. But maybe the person is the nicest person in the world. But you have a prejudice in your mind. Prejudice is this people that looks like this, that comes from here, that does this, that has this country or this background or this, is certainly bad. You're not dealing with the real thing. And so when you look at the universe, look at the world and say it's all physical, it's all material, that's all what counts, it's not reality. You're dealing with non-reality, and you'll never be able to completely understand why you are here, how you can really make a difference in your life, because the power of change, the power of intelligence, the power of understanding and making life work actually resides in the field of consciousness. So that is how the book can enlighten, can guide, can change the perspective, and that's why we are so passionate to make sure we put it in your hands, and that you put it in the hands of your friends, and that you write reviews about it and make it popular, because then it will change the collective understanding, and people will start saying, well, there is maybe another reality than what I thought, and that reality is different than what I have always thought it is, you know. And now you can explore your universe. If you say the sun moves in the sky from east to west, and that's all I believe, and the earth is flat, and you believe that, there are many things you'll never be able to do. Never be able to explore other continents properly, never be able to understand how to explore the universe, or understand the seasons and how they work and why they work, and the relationship and all of that. So understanding allows you to expand your ability to deal with reality in how it is and what reality is. And that is the beauty of knowledge that is enlightening, and that leads us to practice the right techniques, put emphasis on the right things in life, because this is how happiness and fulfillment comes, and not the other way. So thank you very much. It was really a joy to be with you these 4 days. I'm delighted that the book has come out. It's a lifetime of work, as I said. And if we want it to be available and to be read, it's not because it makes money or it brings anything significant on that level. It's just on the same level of sharing knowledge, changing perception of the world towards higher values, so that we can practice the right technologies, guide our life in the right direction, and live a life of happiness and fullness on the individual level, and peace and harmony on the collective level. Thank you all, and I'm sure we'll meet again many, many times. All the best.